Hey everyone and welcome back. Now in today's video we'll be discussing about the service health checks in Consul. Now as we were discussing in the earlier video, there are three primary areas in the overall service discovery process. First one is registration of service, second one is finding a service, and third one is monitoring a service. Now the first two is something that we have already completed. So the today's video focus would primarily be towards the monitoring a service step. Now, when you discuss about monitoring a service, do note that one of the primary role of an agent is management of a system level and an application level health check. So when you discuss about health check, a health check is considered to be application level if it is associated with a service. Now do note that the health check can be associated at a system level where you go ahead and check various things like memory, CPU and others, and it can also be related to application level where you are monitoring a service. Now, depending upon the requirement, there are multiple health check types that are available in Consul. So let's discuss about three of them. So you have script plus interval, HTTP plus interval, and TCP plus interval. So when you discuss about script plus interval, these checks depend on invoking an external application that performs the health check, exits with an appropriate exit code, and potentially generates some output. So your external application can be anything. It can be curl, it can be wget, and any other script that you want to implement. Second is HTTP plus interval, where you go ahead and send a HTTP GET request, and within the response code, if you get 2xx, then it is considered as passing. And TCP plus interval, where you go ahead and send a TCP connection request to a specific IP. Now again, there are multiple other health check types as well, but we are keeping it simple to just have an overview on what it might look like. So let's focus on script check, which is the first check that we were discussing here. So a check script is generally free to do anything to determine the status of the check. However, the limitation is placed towards the exit code. So if you have an exit code of 0, it is considered that a check is passing. If exit code is 1, check is warning, and if any other code, check is failing. So this is more to do with Linux rather than a Consul. So let me in fact show you this. So currently I'm connected to a Linux box. So first step, let's quickly go to a directory which does not exist. So I'll put some random names over here, and here in the output it states no such file or directory. Now if you look into the exit status here, so let's quickly look into the exit status of this command. The exit status is 1, that is, it is not successful. Now if you go to a directory which exists here, so let's say cd temp. So this command was successful. So now if you quickly do a exit status, you will get an exit status of 0. Similarly, if you quickly do a curl on google.com, you basically get a reply, and when you look into the exit status is 0. That means the above command was successful. However, when you do a curl on a random website, let's put a random website here, it states could not resolve, and when you do a echo status here, echo status is 6. So that is what this script checks mean. So you can use any command for script check. It can be curl, it can be maybe a cd command, it can be wget, and so on. Now depending upon the exit code of that command, the overall check would be determined if it is passing, warning, failing. So let's quickly go to the documentation to understand things in more detail. So as we were discussing about the overall service check, we had already discussed that there are multiple check like script interval, HTTP interval, you have TCP interval, then you have various other things like Docker plus interval, gRPC plus interval, and so on. So the overall check definition looks something similar to this, where you have a check, you gave a name to the check. Within the argument, you can provide the argument here. So in this specific check, you are invoking a py file with certain arguments over here, and the output of this check can result in one of the exit code. Now depending upon the exit code, the Consul will determine if a check is passing, warning, or failing. Now similar to this, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and enable a check for our web service that we had created, and the check will be part of the same service definition for ease of use. So here you have a check, and within here you are specifying argument of curl on 127001. So under the documentation here you see within the argument you have specified a script over here. However, it is not always necessary that you can have a script. You can even have a simple command, and that is what we have added. So the command is curl on 127001 and the interval here is 10 seconds. So let's quickly try it out. Now do note that before we have enabled the script level health check, by default it is showing that all the nodes are passing, so only the node level check is used here. So within the console 02 node we are within the etc console.d directory, and let's quickly open up the web.json file. Let's quickly remove all of this with Ctrl K, and let me copy the entire service definition here and I'll paste it. Once done, let's save it, and now let's quickly do a console validate on etc console.d directory. As expected, the configuration here is valid. So let's do a console reload here. Now as soon as you do that, within the output here you basically get a message stating that failed to register service web scripts are disabled on this agent. Now what is happening is, since we have enabled the script level check where we are specifying a command, we have to explicitly enable that specific script checks. So what we have to do is, they have already given us the exact flag here. So let's copy it up and let's quickly open up the console.hcl file, and within here we'll go ahead and enable the checks. So let's just put it as true and I'll save the changes. So now when you do a console reload, again it will show you the same error, primarily because we have not restarted the console. So let's quickly restart the console so that the enable local script check is used. So I'll say systemctl restart console. Let's quickly verify the status. The status is active and running now. So now if you go to the CLI, you will see that this specific service has health check of failing. So if I quickly open this up, here there are two health check. One is the service level health check and second is where the node health check, where the agent related status is determined. So now in order to verify if things are working as expected, we need to actually make an application run on port 80. So currently if I quickly do a curl on localhost, for the port of 80, you are getting connection refused because there is nothing that is listening here. So now let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and install Nginx. So once the Nginx is installed, you can go ahead and start Nginx. So Nginx web server will listen on port 80. So if you do a netstat ntlp, you see that Nginx is listening on port 80 over here. Now as expected, if you go to the GUI, now you see that the service health check is passing and it is also giving you the exact output over here. So this is output of Nginx. In fact, let me show you. So when you do a curl 127.0.0.1, this is the exact output that you get from the command, and the same you see from the console. So it becomes very easy for you to see everything from a centralized dashboard. So again, this is a simple HTML file. So let's quickly find the IP address of this server. So when you open this up, you basically get the default HTML page, and this is nothing but the contents of this HTML which is rendered in the browser. So now let's look into some of the important pointers related to the service health check. First important pointer is that console will only return the hosts that are healthy, and this is very important. So let's say that you have a messaging service and there are two nodes which are implementing this service. One is 31010 and second is 31012. So both the IP addresses of these nodes are registered in console. So if you make a request via the DNS, you will get both the IP address here. So let's say tomorrow, due to some reason, the second server where this service was implemented has failed. So now what will happen is, console will detect that failed server and it will remove it. So now only the IP address of the first server that is passing the health check will be returned to any client that is making a request to Consul. This is very important part to remember. So let's quickly try it out. So from the Consul02, let's go ahead and run a dig on the IP address of the Consul server. So let's type it. The port is 8600 and the format is service name followed by service.consul. So dig is not available in this server. Let's quickly go ahead and install this specific utility. So now let's go ahead and run it, and as expected you are getting the IP address of this server, which is 165.22. So let's quickly verify. So if I do ifconfig 880, this is the same server that has been returned. So now let's go ahead and stop the Nginx service. So once we stop the Nginx service, our health check should fail. So now if you look into the console here, you will see that the health check is failed, and it is also showing you the exact output here, which is saying failed to connect, connection refused. So when you do a curl 127.0.0.1, you get an output something similar to this, and similar is being returned here. When you do a dig again, here you see that no IP address is returned over here, primarily because the server where this service was hosted is failing the script checks. Great. So I hope at a high level overview you understood the basics of service level health checks in Consul.